just gonna. Right, so I'm gonna do a. Thanks for having me, obviously, and I'm just gonna do a short performance, and then I'm gonna discuss how the modules were used in it, and answer any questions. Okay. I'm just gonna take this off for the performance. Oh yeah, we'll make it now.
One little thing, sorry, if you can, take your head a little bit back, and that's cool. So we see what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just stop it. So I will talk about some of the things that were in that patch. I tried to show off a lot of the modules that are here. The first one is Dear Kemi's Castle, which is a dual FM oscillator, what I was doing was, so in this configuration, I have one oscillator as kind of like a carrier modulator, like classic kind of like simple FM patch, and then the other two are working kind of like in an additive way with like two separate sine waves, and they're coming out of here. So out of these two is coming a chord, which is just sort of lying under everything else, and it's going through the mum-mate, which is a filter based on what was in the old Akai 950 and works nicely with the castle. And then the more kind of interesting bit is if I start Pamela going. So you can just hear these two as kind of tones, but if I change the multiplier on each, then well, let's take it out. So I'm just getting sine waves out of both of them, and then via Pamela I'm just sending like looped randomness to each of them, which gives me like the little pattern, and it will stay in tune because it's basically just going up and down octaves. And then if I introduce like a little bit of feedback into that, oh, and then it's going through this delay via the SPG, so that's it going through the delay, and then if I add a little bit of feedback, you'll see it. And then I've got a pip slope here, which is an envelope generator, or you can loop the envelopes, it becomes like a simple LFO, and I've got that modulating the feedback, or not too much of it. And then underneath that, so that's one half of the Akemi, then the other half is the kind of chord from it going through the mum-mate, which is also modulated. And then I could modulate that by sort of changing the waveform, so let me just... or changing... If I was brave, I could have twiddled them a bit more. So that's that bit of the patch. And then the next bit was I had kind of some little rhythmic stuff just from the Takeo, is also driven by the PAM. And then the thing with the Takeo is it's a little bit unpredictable sometimes, which is kind of deliberate. But by changing release times, it's one fun thing to do is just to modulate the even just modulate the release times. this it was left quite sort of high pitched. And then the next lot of sounds were coming from the squid sample, which is an 8-channel sampler, and I've got a set of 8 samples loaded on. I'll just stop it. So I have got, if I just open where they're going. Let me just turn it. So on that, I've got a set of samples on here which I'm basically triggering from Pamela. So I've got a bass drum, snare with a little bit of reverb added onto it, some cymbals. Then verse 4 are like a CR78. Like these samples I'm used ship with it, but I'd played with them a little bit. I'd added some reverb to the snare and just sort of resampled it. And then there's a break. And then this break is chopped up into what the sample calls Q set. So let me just, it's assigned to CV control. So if I'll just unassign it and then what I do is just gonna take that. So if I start Pam, and then I assign the CV, you can see it. You can see it jump around the sample. And that's just controlled by the same randomness that was going into the castle, the same kind of loop randomness. And then what I was doing was just then looping that, so it was going backwards, so it would. Just turn that. And then on channel 6 I had a similar break but a bit more sort of weirdly processed that was kind of underneath it. Then on number 7 is a similar thing but a little acid loop, I think, which is coming out of... just playing backwards, so... And then that's got a Q set on it as well, so I can, let me just turn this, sort of effectively add resonance to it. And that was sort of just, it was playing underneath the, I think it was playing backwards underneath the Akemi and then a bit later on as well. And then the last sample was this kind of stab, which that's on channel 8, and then I had randomness, the same randomness again going into the Akemi, but that was going into the pitch control. So if I start that up again, you should. So it was just playing that little tune. See if I'm... I could play that. Oh, and also that's got like so on the squid I can put like I can quantize the samples, so that's actually quantized to octaves. So if I turn the quantization off, then I can be sort of more freeform with a pitch, but it stays in tune better if I leave it quantized. And then there was the sort of subby bass line, which was coming from the MCO, and this was also going through the mum mate, coming up here, which was being filtered just to squelch it up a little bit, and then that was being sequenced by the mega slope, which only has it has 5 stages. If I just start that going again. But you see it jump around, and what I'm doing from Pamela is I'm taking a divider by 4, so it keeps resetting it at different points, and it just makes the pattern a little more interesting. And yeah, that's about it. I think. I don't think there was anything else in the patch. That was pretty much all of it. And then I was just using the tangles as a mixer just to kind of bring bits in and out. And also the breaks were going through the P1. Let me just bring the break back. So that should. And then you can. I was just sweeping a little bit on there. Oh, that's going to be both. Yeah. And that was about it. And another, like, what I can do if I just go to the drums on the sampler. So that's the CR78 drum sequenced by Pamela, and that's just like an Euclidean pattern for the bass drum, like a snare just on a basic divider. And then the cymbals are just like random loops again, like with like a random skip. And yeah, and then so with a sampler I can do things like, oh, I don't like them, I'll sort of use 606 instead. Or I could use 707. Yeah, let's try 707. And there's like loads of, this comes with like loads of kits which are all on the USB, so like R8s. HL16. So it can be quite a good fun just putting patterns through and loading in different banks of drums. Yeah, and that was basically the patch. So, yeah, I don't know if anyone's got any questions. No.
Does the sampler has separate outputs per sample?
Yeah, so it has. So there's 8 channels with 4 outputs down here. I'm using the mix output for the first 2 channels, and then the breaks on 5 and 6, which are going through the P1 filter, and then the kind of acid loop and the stabby sound are just coming down here, because this tangle I'm using as a send, so I can send stuff there through the delay.
Switch like presets from the sampler via a CD?
No. No. Well, you can, with the Q sets, you can load in like there's these banks called mega banks, which have they have the Q sets. This will take a second to load because they're absolutely ginormous. But they'll have like a single channel, and then they have like Q sets of like loads and loads of samples. And you can use a CV to control to skip on them. So that's kind of but you can't CV control the actual loading off the USB because it's just not quick enough. You can see here loading in this big bank. Although it's still it'll still keep playing while. So if I go to, let me just find a channel that I've. So on channel 4 you can see. Yeah, I can sort of, so I assign that, and then, so you can hear it jumping. Yeah, so that's how you do the CV control. And I was doing that on the brake, like it jumping around the. Yeah, all from the Pamela. So I've got there's basically 6 sets of triggers, and then but I'm duping some to do the brakes, and the brake is using the same trigger as one of the cymbals. And the Pamela triggers are either like regular ones or kind of a bit of randomness or Euclidean patterns. Yeah, these 2 blue ones, they're the 2 like looped randoms. So if I go, I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but these both have like random waveforms coming out, but then they have the loop set, so they're going for like, I don't know, like a few bars and then looping back round on themselves. And yeah, I'm basically just duping that everywhere to modulate different things. Yeah. I'm not using it for envelopes here. Like it's kind of a weird patch in that I'm not sort of like you can see the VCAs I've got here. There's like no. I'm literally using the VCAs just as mixers. There's no envelopes, which is a bit weird actually. The only envelopes I'm using that are just set to modulate things, like looped. Like I'm getting a lot out of the sampler in that. I'm just triggering it and then messing with the samples, which is why it's sort of so compact. Yeah, so the P1 filter is based on a old like Tascam mixer. I think it's a 242, although I might be wrong. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like the old, with the tape, like the 4-track one, but the really early one. And it's just really nice. It's a pretty simple circuit, but it's not voltage controlled. It's just manual, but it can really, if I run the. Oh, of course. If I just leave that going. That's sweeping the kind of low end. And then that's the. Where's that coming out of 5? Let me just. I'll just load something more interesting. No. Oh, of course it's muted. One sec. You can give you got like a bell going like that, and then you can pull it all the way down as well. it's nice for just, if you've got like just to kind of like really precisionally sort of fit something in, I guess.
Could you explain the mega slope?
Yeah, so the mega slope is it can be a 5-stage envelope, of a 5-stage LFO, or a 5-stage step sequencer. So here I'm using it as a step sequencer. I've got a trigger going into it here. I've got the gate input here, which is resetting it, and then I'm using it to... If I get rid of the... But one nice thing you can do is it's got like programmable... You can change the time it takes to get from each one and the slope. So if all the times are down, then it's just like stepping through. Let me just speed that up a bit. But then with these controls, you can sort of have like programmable slew. Or not. What's it going on? And then change the slope as well. And then you could take the gate out entirely and just set it to one sec, that's a just like an LFO that's just driving the pitch. Or it can be an envelope where it's waiting for a trigger and then change the number of stages as well. So that was just yeah, and then you got like a unipolar and bipolar outputs, and then triggers for like end of stage and end of cycle. I'm using the end of stage to trigger the takeover, just so it was like a tiny little bit off. And you got voltage control over the time and the levels on each stage, but I'm not using that.
How are you sequencing the castle? Because, like, I think you said you were using the Turing machine out of hands.
Yeah, basically.
It's not quantized, right?
No, it's not. But because I'm modulating the multipliers, they're effectively quantizing it. Yeah. So it's effectively quantizing it to octaves. Yeah, so like if I do it manually, so and I'm just doing that with randomness from Pam. Any more?
So it seems to me like you look at old machines and take good parts and make them to the module. Is that kind of philosophy?
No, I think kind of. There's no kind of deliberate philosophy. At least there's not meant to be. But I just sort of make stuff that I like, I guess, and it kind of just turns out that way. and also at the same time I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be original, and I'm not, to try and, I'm not trying to do like another MS-20 filter or another 303 filter or anything like that. And I think I am, but where I am more strict is in terms of like the kind of UI, and I do follow like very sort of specific rules there. But generally, yeah, in terms of like what the modules do, it's kind of like there's kind of 3 categories. There's kind of like the kind of special modules, which do something that I don't think anything else is doing, and something that I want in something that I want in my system, which is like the Pamlas, the Achemis, the sample, and then there's kind of like the kind of bread and butter modules, where they're maybe not the most original thing, but they sort of do something in a specific way that I want. Like with the Tangle Quartet, I just wanted like a really clean, basic VCA that was quad and didn't take up too much space and really didn't sort of have any bells and whistles. It was just a VCA, and I could use it like as a mixer as well. Or like the Pip Slopes, I just wanted like a small envelope that would remember whether the loop was on or off when I turned on and off the module. Like that's really important to me, that all the modules kind of remember state. Like I find it really frustrating if I have a module that I power cycle and then it works differently to before. So I really try hard to make all my modules remember state. And then obviously kind of like aesthetically, I have a lot of fun with how they look, but I'm also kind of like, I don't like using like toggle switches or like the little slider switches. I like modern kind of style switches, and just kind of keeping everything kind of consistent. I guess as consistent as I can, but at the same time kind of keeping it interesting so all the modules don't look exactly the same. They've all got a little bit of character, a little bit of soul,
I think the design aspect is very consistent, even to the packaging. It's very original and nice.
Thank you. Yeah. Like I put a lot of effort into that. Yeah. 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 Like they're not cheap things. So if it means that I have to spend a little bit more with the packaging, I think and try and do something a bit more interesting, then it's nice. It's just like a nice kind of thing that it's got a little bit of soul, a little bit of character to it.
Matthew, there are rumors that you name your modules after families around you. Is that true? Or like?
I've never heard that. Never heard that.
You're allowed in SchneidersLaden.
Really? No, there's no Matthew module. No, I think that's. I don't know where that's come from. Pardon. No more questions.
I'd like to thank you all.
Thanks everyone for coming.